So I have been having a play lately at my video settings in Battlefield 5 to try and figure out how to get to 144 frames per second whenever I can, essentially. I want to make sure that I'm getting the max frame rate. And here's what I've done on a system that's got a Ryzen 5 3600X and a 1660 Super graphics card. So definitely very mid-range, mid to low range equipment, but I'm able to get a fairly high 130 to 144 hertz FPS pretty consistently with these settings. So you want to set this to full screen just for, you can get like variable refresh rate and stuff like that when you use windowed if you go in and change it in your NVIDIA settings, but I like to keep full screen so that there's less input lag. And then right here is just whatever monitor you're using, that's fine. Be sure right here to make sure that you've got this, because you can actually click through and a lot of times by default it will have 1920 by 1080 60 hertz enabled, and you will not get the full 144 hertz like you're supposed to if you've got a monitor that supports it. So be sure to click that up, make sure you're at, it doesn't let you go all the way, but 143.85 is what it lets you get. Be sure to do that. Brightness is kind of irrelevant to FPS, I think, but I like to keep mine bumped up just a little bit to see. FOV, obviously if you set it higher, it's going to be a little bit more taxing because it's having to show you more, but around 74 with the FOV of 90, of course, is kind of a good sweet spot. It makes it actually about 106 if you're in a 16 by 9 FOV. And I may do a separate video on field of view because there's a lot that goes into it. Battlefield games are kind of weird, but this one I set higher just because I like to see around the vehicle and I'm not in that much. ADS field of view, again, doesn't really affect FOV too much, but if you turn it on and you have this wider FOV, you will maintain a little bit wider FOV when you look down your sight. Otherwise, you can leave it off and it actually will kind of zoom in to that default 55 that this starts at. So something interesting to have a play at and see which one you like better. Motion blur, I turn it all the way off because that's distracting. I've got a little bit more frames. ADS DOF, or depth of field, turn that off. There's no reason to really be blurring or peripheral vision whenever you're aiming down sights. That's just kind of nuts. I don't know why that's even a thing. Custom color settings, that's totally up to you. Some people will turn it to Tritonopia just to get the nice green and the nice red and blue because it makes them very nice primary color looking. Right now I've got it off just because I recently did a fresh install of Windows 10 and lost all my settings and haven't changed it. Either way, that's a preference thing. And then I turn all these off. You will get a little bit of a frame dip on a lower end system like mine if you have these kind of things on, and they don't really add any help to you. They don't. It's just kind of to make the game look better, so I turn all those off. The real magic, I guess, happens in the advanced tab over here. I've been having a play lately at having DX12 enabled. You will have to restart the game if you change this up, but I've done that, and I don't run this obviously because that's ray tracing. My graphics card doesn't support that. HDR's off, and then future frame rendering. You'll have to have a play at having this on or off. With DX12, I found that I'm able to get a higher frame rate with it off. I'm not even sure that you can turn it on and have it actually really do anything with DX12. But with DX12 enabled, I can get to 144 hertz on this auto minimum latency, which pretty much has everything at low or off. And with this on, I can get up to like the 130 or 144 range. With this off, I can only get to around 100. So DX12 actually makes a huge difference. The only problem with DX12 is I've noticed that there's a lot of micro stuttering and kind of like it feels like weird frame drops and that kind of thing whenever you first start up and load into a map. So keep that in mind. A lot of times it will go away after a minute or two, but it is kind of frustrating on, at least I've noticed on my system in particular, and it could be on your system as well if you've got similar specs to my hardware, that you'll notice some stuttering as I guess the map loads or whatever. But like I say, eventually it goes away like after 1 to 2 minutes, and then you're all good. It flows nice, and it only really happens at the beginning of matches. So turning this on is what really boosted me that last like nearly 30-40 FPS was to turn this on. So, and then like I've already kind of touched on down here, you can have a play at these kind of things to see what they do for you. I've set this to 144 instead of the 200 because there's no point that I see in having it try and make more, because I'm not even going to see them unless I overclock the monitor a little bit, but I haven't done that. So again, that's a whole different topic really. And then right here, I've tried the auto minimum latency. Right now it's the auto is doing low, which is, I mean, you can have a play at turning it to low manually. That may work better for you. I've had instances where that's worked better, but just watch out when you change it. It does tend to flip all of these back on. So anytime you flip that preset, you'll have to come back, turn down motion blur, and then turn all of these off again, because it will change them. So either way, low, or if you do the minimum latency thing, it'll probably set you to low if you have similar hardware to mine. But once you flip to low instead of the auto, it'll allow you to change a couple different things, like the resolution scale. You can try dropping this like 10% to like 90 if you want to try and get a couple more frames. But it can start getting pretty sketchy looking pretty quick. So most of the time I try to leave this at 100 if I can. Future frame rendering, can really help get more frames per second as well if you turn it on. The only problem with this is that you will may or may not, but it does increase input lag. So if you really want it to be like when you click something happens, then you'll want to be sure to leave this one off, though it can really help bump up the frames per second at the cost of having the input lag that I talked about. Vertical sync, leave it off if you're using G-Sync like I am. I have a variable refresh rate monitor that does, it's not a G-Sync monitor, it's a FreeSync monitor, but it is G-Sync compatible. So leave this off if you're using that technology. Otherwise it can make things kind of funky. I leave that off, and then I leave this off is what I've been playing at, like you saw. I've been here, and it's been working pretty good. I've been getting 144 hertz, and it's super helpful. Actually, I didn't turn it back on that time. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Just be wary that sometimes when you flip those presets, these will come back on. But I don't know. I just had an urge to make a video settings guide, kind of what I've been playing around with, kind of off the cuff, just turning the game on and recorded this for you guys. So hopefully it's helpful if you stumbled across this. This is what I've been using to get a higher refresh rate. And I'm going to talk about this on my podcast eventually. I just haven't gotten there yet. But the higher refresh rate, I kind of have to eat my words a little bit, is actually very beneficial. It's upped my game a noticeable amount just by switching to a monitor that will let me see more frames per second. So like I say, I'm going to talk about this on my podcast, so stay tuned for that. Links for it are down in the description if you want to get on there and subscribe, so you'll be there whenever it drops. And I hope you guys found this quick video run through on how to get more frames helpful. Anyways, I hope you would like the video if you did enjoy this, and also consider subscribing if you would like to see more content like this, because I'm going to be looking to get out more content that's helpful, setting stuff, stuff I've done to improve, all that kind of stuff. I really want to provide value to some of you guys. So until then, I will see you guys next time.